Today was the conference on global warming. Where do you stand on global warming? Where do you stand on the fact that the EPA should be reined in, and when Congress makes laws, they should pass the regulations, not a group of people sitting in an office somewhere? And my nephew works for the EPA in DC, so I'm actually against it. I think it should be reduced, and that power should go back to the states, not to the federal government that makes all these regulations.
Yeah, climate change is an interesting issue, and they did have this meeting and resolved nothing. That's similar to 2009, 2010, when the Democrats had the majority in the House and Senate, the White House, they did nothing on it. It's being elevated now, I think, as a political issue, because it doesn't seem like there hasn't been critical mass to do anything about it. Does the climate change? You know what? We're blessed to live in a valley that was carved by thousands of feet of glaciers, ice. And if we dig around, in the fields, we can find fossils from sea creatures. Does it change? You better believe it does. And is it going to change? Yes, it will. And I think we have an obligation, an opportunity to adapt. The Stimulus Act, I didn't support it, but it included $77 billion to deal with climate change. Global warming, actually, is what it was to deal with. Climate capitalism. Where that money went, where it was spent, where it was wasted. You know what, $77 billion, how much the administration and those who voted for the stimulus put into adaptation. And remember, we know the climate's going to change. I'm not sure which way it's going, but it will change, it always has. 1%. 1%. If the climate's going to change, don't we have an obligation? And I think, climate cronyism got in the way of doing right by the American people. And I was proud to support a bill, some funding that went to Penn State to look at climate change on our Pennsylvania hardwoods. What difference would that make on some of the best hardwoods in the world if the temperature changes 2 degrees one way or the other? We ought to be looking at that. Those are the obligations we ought to have in adaptation, because as a climate change, you better believe it does. Do we need to adapt? Sounds to me like the right thing to do.
Didn't answer the question. Thompson. Excuse me, you didn't answer the question about whether the EPA should be
I'm sorry, the
regulated.
second part of the question?
Yes.
Want to go to another minute? All right. Yeah. The EPA, I thought the EPA was a very good thing that was formed. It was scientists that were looking to do the job. Today, I really question that. Dealing with these policies and in my committee work and as a member of Congress, there's such a political agenda, it seems like, that they're trying to advance. They don't base their decisions on science. And I have grave concerns with that. I think the whole discussion, the rally for global warming, which some of the evidence seems to show that we're cooling now, not getting warmer, is for political purposes. I do think the EPA, I'd like to get the EPA back in the lines of where they are truly based using good science. And I'd also think we need to get them back in the lines of the Constitution. Under Article 1, Congress, the House and Senate, make the laws. And today we see so much abusive rulemaking that are going on under Article 2, the executive branch, and specifically by agencies like the EPA. It's just time to get back in the lines of the Constitution and to use best available science for decision making, not political agendas.
98% of scientists say there's climate change. 98% of science. I mean, if 98 doctors told me I was sick and needed treatment, and 2 said I didn't, I'm going for treatment. To ignore the fact that the wave of science is telling us that this is changing and we need to pay attention to it, I feel is flying in the face of science. Interestingly enough, the votes that happened in the past handful of years in Congress to rein in the EPA were based on the theory that we could hand this responsibility over to the states, and that the states would responsibly manage our resources. There was just an article yesterday about how few of the violations of the Marcellus wells across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania have actually been reported. right? They keep a database now, and for each one, there was multiple violations, one would show up, and it was the least violation. We have, state budget was cut severely for the DEP. We don't have enough people to go out and inspect the wells that are there, right? So this concept that the federal EPA can pull back because the states will step in and protect our natural resources didn't quite work out for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So someone has to be a steward over our resources. When you ruin a stream, and it costs a lot of money to clean it up. And a lot of these companies aren't insured or bonded, so when they do, they file bankruptcy and they're protected from the future lawsuits. So I know, I enjoy living in central Pennsylvania. I love being out in the woods with my kiddos, and I want it to be clean, I want it to be safe, I want to be able to drink the water. Brookville is very proud to have one of the finest water sources in the Commonwealth. I want it to stay that way. So I believe we need to look. Now, interestingly enough, the Thursday before Memorial Day, there were 3 hearings on the Hill, 1 in the Senate, 2 in the House, where the military, the Department of Defense, came and said, we would like permission to spend some of our appropriations studying climate change. You're asking us to be prepared for the Hurricane Sandys of the world and the forest fires. We need to be prepared. We need to study. And do you know what the House told them? No. No. They're the front line. When these natural disasters hit us, I want them to be prepared, and they need to be able to study to do that. Thank you.